Well, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken looking to calm tensions in the Middle East again as he visits the region for the fourth time since war started in Gaza. Mr. Blinken's trip comes as Israeli forces continue military operations across Gaza. The Palestinian Red Crescent Society reporting bombings near its headquarters in southern Khan Yunis. The aid group is asking the international community to intervene and help protect its patients from airstrikes. Gaza's health ministry says more than 160 Palestinians have been killed in the past 24 hours. The IDF conducted a massive raid on refugee camps in central Gaza this week, displacing hundreds of Palestinians. Many were forced to flee south towards Rafah to escape the violence. Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant earlier outlined plans for the future governance of Gaza once the war is over. He says neither Israel nor Hamas will govern the Palestinian enclave, but Israel would retain overall security control. Meanwhile, the European Union's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, is heading to Lebanon today for talks with military and government officials. He's expected to stress the importance of peace along the Israel-Lebanese border. Fears of a spillover from the conflict in Gaza comes as Israel and Hezbollah trade fire along their frontier. And for more, Trent Murray joins us live from Tel Aviv. Trent, this is Secretary Blinken's fourth visit to the Middle East, to the region, fifth to Israel since the war started in Gaza. What is he hoping to achieve?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, America's top diplomat flying into this region yet again at a time when it feels like tensions are really escalating rather than subsiding. We are being told by the US State Department that there are a number of issues on the agenda that he wants to discuss, not just with officials here in Israel, but other key players, including Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Lebanon and Egypt. And we know that really, first and foremost, is the situation in Gaza. The Americans have been looking to Israel for answers on when they're going to move away from the high-intensity style of warfare that we've been seeing to something that's more targeted in order to try and spare the lives of civilians, which continue to be killed within the besieged Strip. We also know humanitarian aid high on the agenda, as the UN says 40% of people living within Gaza are now at risk of immediate famine. That issue of the hostages as well, high on the agenda, 129 of them still being held by Hamas, including American citizens. And then there are some of those wider regional questions, those tensions simmering on the border of Lebanon. The Israeli army is saying that it now remains at its highest state of readiness following that airstrike in Beirut earlier this week. They are effectively waiting and watching to see whether Hezbollah will respond militarily. And also, we mustn't forget the situation in the Red Sea. There have been continued attacks launched by the Yemen-based Houthi rebels on civilian shipping, that coming despite that enormous show of force by the Americans and other allies in that region with naval ships, even an aircraft carrier strike group. It seemingly hasn't deterred the Houthis from stepping up those attacks. So look, a lot on the agenda. I think right now many diplomats in this region are hoping that the diplomacy can be dialed up somewhat in order to try and just bring down the temperature of the tensions which are simmering here.
Trent, as you mentioned, a lot on the agenda, but amidst all this, the IDF setting up a team to look at how the military failed leading up to Hamas attacks on the 7th of October. Why do that now when, as you mentioned, there's so much on the agenda?
Yeah, that's right. And the timing of this is proving controversial, certainly within the Israeli government. We have had multiple reports in Israeli media today suggesting that when Israel's military top brass presented this plan to the cabinet overnight, it descended into a shouting match. Some members of Benjamin Netanyahu's government saying the timing wasn't right. But the IDF hasn't backed off on this plan, I should say. They say they really do want to study whether there were operational or intelligence failures in the way it not only responded to the October 7th attack, but whether anything could have been done to prevent the scale of what we saw. The IDF has said in a statement that it will conduct a professional investigation to examine the conduct of the army in the war, to improve its performance for the future. But crucially, rebuffing some of that criticism from within the government, the military says it doesn't want to look at anything on the political kind of arena of all of this. This is purely an operational assessment to try and make sure that if there are lessons to be learned from what went wrong on October 7th, that the army can work to prevent them happening again in the future.
Thanks for that. Trent Murray reporting from Tel Aviv.